So in yesterday's game against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chicago Bears really struggled and were basically down 17-0 in the first quarter when it was the first team offense going up against the first team defense. Right, Patrick Mahomes drove right downfield multiple times. And last night when I watched that game, I was definitely scratching my head. But watching the tape, it's very clear that this team shot themselves in the foot. But I really like the bounce back that the Bears had in the second quarter. Keep in mind, although Patrick Mahomes' night was done basically after the first quarter and the one play he had in the second quarter, although Patrick Mahomes was done, the first team defense stayed out there for the entire first half, right? So the 5 drops that Caleb Williams had, that first team defense stayed out there. So I want to talk about kind of what happened in that first quarter, why the Bears ultimately shot themselves in the foot. And we'll just start right away with the defensive side. With the Bears, I have the most question marks on that defensive side. Now, I like Dennis Allen as a coordinator. I'm a Raider fan, so I, have known Dennis Allen for years, right? He was our head coach for years, about 10 years back at this point. And I like him. I always felt like he was a good coordinator on the defensive side. He hasn't had as much success as a head coach, but as a coordinator, the reason why he's had those opportunities is because he's a solid coordinator. And on the defensive side, it was kind of the unit that I wanted to see. I wanted to see the pass rush. Can the pass rush get home on the Kansas City Chiefs' revamped offensive line? At the same time, can you get off the field against Patrick Mahomes? Can you get off the field on third down? Yesterday, the Bears were unable to do any of that, right? And I want to just kind of start right there. We're going to start right away with the first drive of the game. On the second play of the game, Kansas City gained 35 yards on the second play of the game. It was 2nd and 4. You essentially get 35 yards. And it wasn't because Patrick Mahomes completed a pass. It wasn't because of the fact that, someone broke a run or an end around or whatever. It was because of a pass interference called and a face mask on top of that on Nashawn Wright, cornerback. And this play, I feel like this is one of those moments where this absolutely flips the game. The pass interference literally was for like 15, 20 yards. And they got a 15-yard face mask on top of that. And truth be told, I didn't really see the actual pass interference or the face mask. Now, there's a chance that his hand ended up touching the face mask at some point. But that play right there, that was 2nd and 4. It was an incomplete pass. The Bears could have been in a 3rd and 4 situation. Instead, you basically go from having the ball at like the 37-yard line. Now you're basically at the 32, 33-yard line on the other side of the field, right? On Bears' side of the field. To me, that play right there flips the game. And I'm not saying that it's not necessarily a penalty, but like that's a head scratching play. And I don't even know if Wright's going to play when the regular season kind of comes around. I know he was out there as a starting cornerback, but will he actually be the starter, come day one? Maybe he is, maybe he won't. We'll see what ends up happening. But Casey then gets the ball at the 33-yard line, and they actually had 2 incomplete passes. First down, second down, 2 incomplete passes. Phenomenal job by the defense. Casey tries to draw up what looks like some sort of tight end slip play. TJ Edwards does a good job kind of seeing it. The tight end slips a little bit as well. You're going to get into a 3rd and 10 situation here, and these are the moments where you win Super Bowls. 3rd and 10, even a 3rd and 4 had that penalty not happened the play before, or the first down before, right? You're in a 3rd and 10, you have to get off the field, and what's crazy about this 3rd and 10 play is that the coverage downfield was actually pretty damn good. And this is kind of what Dennis Allen is known for, right? He's kind of known for the coverage ability, right? Not necessarily as like, hey, I'm a great defensive line coach, right? Every coach is known for something specific, right? You look at Robert Saleh as a defensive coordinator. The guy's known to produce some of the best linebackers in the NFL. He just knows how to coach that position. Well, with Dennis Allen, it's a secondary. He just knows what he's kind of doing out there. The coverage was great on that 3rd and 10. And Patrick Mahomes makes the Patrick Mahomes type of plays, right? He ends up being able to kind of slip out of there. He sees the wide receiver kind of break and kind of gives him like a 50-50 opportunity. And Juju Smith-Schuster makes a 19-yard grab essentially, right? Or you pick up 19 yards on 3rd and 10. The thing with this play is this is the moment where you win a Super Bowl. Straight up, right? Like if when these plays happen, you'll probably get like 50 of these plays over the course of the season. When these type of plays happen, if you're able to get off the field on, let's say, 40 of those 50 times, you're going to have success and you potentially win that Super Bowl. If you can't get off these fields, and bad defenses oftentimes don't get off the field at that point, you're not going to win. You're not going to have success. And to me, you can even make the argument Montez Sweat was like straight up held on this play. He does a pretty good job bull rushing the right tackle, a starting right tackle as well. He bull rushes, I believe his name is John Taylor, back into the quarterback, and you could tell like his left arm is held. Even Gervon Dexter, I think, may have been held on this play. You may have gotten a holding on those guys. I definitely think Sweat was held on this play. But with that, you're not able to get off the field, and you pick up the 19 yards, and eventually you just kind of punch it in, right? You're able to just kind of punch it in. You know what's crazy about that first drive is you kind of shot yourselves in the foot on two separate plays on that first drive. And Patrick Mahomes was 2 of 6 on that first drive, right? He got helped by that penalty, and of course, third down play, he made a great play. That's not a terrible drive by the defense, right? Yeah, the defense didn't get off the field, but what the defense did do was they got into the two situations where it should have been third down. They weren't able to get off the field. They weren't able to make those plays. And even more than that, when the regular season comes around, when Dennis Allen has 3, 4, 5 games under his belt with this unit, things are going to look different, right? He'll make adjustments. Some players will get swapped out. The first drive wasn't absolutely terrible in my opinion. Now, the second drive was also not absolutely terrible. In fact, outside of a 58-yard pass, which Nashawn Wright once again ends up giving up, outside of this 58-yard pass, the Chiefs didn't do a whole lot, right? They ended up just kicking a field goal on this drive. This was a good drive, in my opinion, for the Bears, minus the one play. And again, I question, is Nashawn Wright a starter? Right? Is this guy an actual starting caliber cornerback, and is he going to start for the Bears? The second drive was just a 58-yard pass. That was most of that drive. And they ended up settling for a field goal, so the Bears do a good job on that second drive getting off the field. Now, the third drive, you can make the argument it was a terrible drive for the defense. There's just nothing to this third drive where you say, hey, this is good, or it just wasn't good. Literally 6 plays, 6 really good plays for the Chiefs, and you just go right downfield and you score a touchdown. Now, first play, Kelsey gets 20. Second play, you get a screen pass. Third play, Kelsey gets 12 yards. He's in a one-on-one against Jaquan Brisker. The defense does do a great job on the fourth play of that drive, but Mahomes, takes off running, which is another thing that I think the Bears are going to have to really hone in on this season. You have to. And if you have Andrew Billings out there, if you have Gervon Dexter out there, these guys are not super, super, super fast as defensive tackles. Patrick Mahomes is going to run away from these guys. So if you have those two guys out there, and even Montez Sweat isn't super fast, if the Bears roll out with those guys out there on the field, you have to be able to contain quarterbacks. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are mobile in today's NFL. So this is something to just kind of keep an eye on. I do think Patrick Mahomes is like elite at making plays with his legs, but this is something to kind of keep an eye on if you're a Bears fan, right? How does the defense make those adjustments to contain quarterbacks? Because on the other side, right, and we'll talk about this on the offensive side, the Chiefs did a great job keeping Caleb Williams in the pocket. They did not let this guy get out of the pocket for the most part. I just think it's one of those things where adjustments have to be made if you're Dennis Allen and, you're the defensive coordinator on that side. The fifth play after Patrick Mahomes takes off running, Pacheco picks up 13 yards. And Nashawn Wright, once again, loses containment on the top side. And every single one of these 3 drives, this guy had a bad play that ultimately leads to a big play. This is why I question. I'm not sure if Wright's going to be the starter for I know they have Jalen Johnson. But so after that run by Pacheco, the quarter actually ended. And then Mahomes came out for one more play. It was a back shoulder touchdown pass to, I believe it was Stevenson in coverage, to Rashee Rice, 4 yards. That drive was not good, right? The third drive for the Bears defense was not good. You have to make adjustments. I will also just kind of throw this out there. Yeah, if you guys did not know this, that final drive that the Chiefs were in the game, they actually mimicked a hurry-up style of offense, right? There was about 2 minutes and 26 seconds left when they got out there on the field, and these guys went quick, right? They went fast, and they're basically practicing, hey, end of the second quarter, end of the game situation, we want to go fast. And they were obviously put in that position with 2 minutes and 26 seconds left. And they went quick. Mahomes threw the ball literally on every single play, except for one play where they ran the football. But, they basically threw the football in every single one of those plays, and they went quick. And those are also moments where the defensive coordinator may not be able to kind of set up his defense. You can't really make those switches as well. And I don't even know if the defensive coordinator realized that they're about to go quick, right? So just kind of keep that in mind with the third drive. But regardless, no excuses. It was a bad drive, however you look at it. You're down 17-0 at this point. Overall, from just the defensive perspective, the Bears, they got to figure some things out. And, the Bears are not going to be a defensive team, right? Let's also just kind of understand what this team is as we go forward. Ben Johnson's going to try scoring 40 points every single game. And I know they didn't do that against the Kansas City Chiefs, especially in the first quarter. But there's reasons as to why they did not do that. And I want to talk about this, right? Because I think if you guys just kind of followed and just watched the tape a little bit, you'd recognize why the Bears offense did not have that success and why they ultimately, got kind of shut down. And I don't even know if the fact that the Bears offense did not sustain drives, maybe that's why the defense on that third drive ended up giving up that touchdown so quickly. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're gassed. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this a little bit. So, first play of the game, Ben Johnson draws up an end around. The wide receiver, man, this is a low awareness play. You have to slow down. If you're getting an end around play, you have to slow down. But at the same time, the quarterback has to get into his cadence quicker and he has to get that ball snap quicker. The wide receiver is late on the handoff. You're better off than if the wide receiver is early and the handoff hasn't happened. Because you have a situation where on 1st and 10, you could fumble the football and you can lose 4 yards. And that's exactly what happened. You lost 4 yards on the very first play of the game. Had you cleanly made this handoff to the wide receiver, maybe you pick up 5, 6, 7 yards and you get this drive kind of rolling on a good pace. Instead, you lose 4 yards. And some people might question, because I did see this on social media, was that even supposed to be a handoff? Or did the wide receiver just hit the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands? It was definitely supposed to be a handoff. You can see the wide receiver at the bottom of the screen. He's reach blocking his guy, right? You can just tell by the angle that he's taking, which means that this is supposed to be an end around to the other side. With that being stated, you're now in a 2nd and 14, and the rookie tight end ends up jumping. Bad situation there. Happens, right? You'd rather have it happen now than week 1 when the season rolls around. Now you're in a 2nd and 19. The drive's already basically over at this point, right? If you get into a 2nd and 19 situation, it's very, very rare that you're going to pick that first down up. But the way you would pick that first down up is you need to get back, anywhere from 5 to 10 yards, if not more. Like at the very minimum, you need to be in like a 3rd and 12 situation, and then you have a real shot. But if you're in a 3rd and 19, you're not picking up 19 yards. Not in the NFL. Just rarely happens. So you're in a 2nd and 19. Ben Johnson designs a pretty nice concept. So he's going to design a levels concept to the top, and he's going to design a dagger concept on the bottom. To me, the Chiefs do a pretty good job in coverage. I think the only guy that's really open is Adunze, and I feel like Caleb Williams did not want to take that pass to him. Maybe he wanted to pick up more yards. The pass to the wide receiver here picks up about 5 to 7 yards. So if maybe instead of being in a 3rd and 13 or 3rd and 11 situation, maybe he wanted to get into a 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6 situation. And with that, you're basically now going to be in a 3rd and 19. To me, that's on Caleb Williams. So you got to, put your team in a better situation for that 3rd down play. You don't have to pick up all those yards on the very first opportunity you have. I think these are learning moments for a guy like Caleb Williams, right? He's still a young quarterback. I think, offensive coordinator wise, this is the first time he's had a really, really good offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson is on a completely different level from an offensive structure, understanding offense as well. He's on a completely different level. 3rd and 19, Caleb Williams actually does a really good job with this pass. He stands tall in the pocket, has pressure right in his face. 3rd and 19 picks up 15 yards. Now, of course, 15 yards is not 19 yards, so you're going to end up punting the football and essentially go 3 and out. But had he on 2nd and 19 picked up 5 or 7 yards, theoretically, 3rd and 13 play would have been enough, right? He'd have picked up 15 yards if he makes the same pass on the same play on the next 3rd down. So Caleb Williams just has to take the smart decision sometimes, right? Instead of trying to get it all on one play, just take the smart decision. So these are just learning situations, right? Now, of course, drive 2, the offense comes out there on the field. They're already down 10-0 at this point. These are drives where you really got to get it going, right? Got to get some points on the board. To be fair, the Bears did have a couple of nice moments where they, start this drive, they start picking up, 3 yards, 5 yards. They're at the 44-yard line, 2nd and 3, and the drive doesn't end, but Caleb Williams takes a bad sack, and the offensive line did a phenomenal job on this play. I think even Ben Johnson mentioned it in his post-game presser that the offensive line held up well, and Caleb Williams has to get the ball out. Now, the thing on this 2nd and 3 play is Caleb Williams went down on a spacings concept, so it's a part of the quick game action. And Caleb reads this right to left. And here's the thing with this. When you read this play right, the corner on your right is going to be Trent McDuffie. And Trent McDuffie was all over the wide receiver at the top. I believe this was DJ Moore. With that, Caleb Williams did not feel comfortable essentially making that pass. Understandably so. it's quick game, right? So the offensive linemen are not getting vertical. Some guys are going to quick set. Some guys are going to get into a 45-degree set. You're not going to have a ton of time. So he looks to the right. He looks back to the left. And the thing is if you don't make the pass when you come back to the left, you're going to go down for a sack. You're just not going to have enough time. Now, Caleb could have potentially come back. The O-line did a phenomenal job, truth be told. You could have come back, and there was a tight end running wide open. You could have potentially hit him, but this is freeze framing a play. Play lasts 3-4 seconds max. Right, that play did right there. We can freeze frame it and say tight end's wide open, hit this guy. It's a hard situation, right? Because Caleb Williams already looked right. He already looked left. For him to come back, it's kind of unrealistic. So again, learning lesson for Caleb Williams. Don't take the sack. Throw the ball away. Just hit your offensive lineman in the back of the head, right? Whatever it is, just throw the ball away, right? Don't take the sack. It's the worst thing you could possibly do. 3rd and 8, Caleb's essentially going to end up hitting, I believe it's a tight end running across the middle of the field. And here's the thing with this play. The Chiefs are going to come out and cover one rat, right? The Chiefs are a heavy man team, heavy blitz, heavy man. They simulate pressure. They do all these different things. They trap coverages, mixed coverages. Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive coordinators for a reason. And the Chiefs come out and cover one rat. Nobody gets open on this play. Literally, across the board, nobody gets open. Adunze does end up getting open, and I would have loved for Caleb Williams to give him the opportunity. But there was also a safety right in the middle of the field. I think the wide receiver would have taken a hit, and it may not have even been completed anyways. I don't think you throw those passes if you're a quarterback. No one's open, right? It's just a perfect job by the opposing defense. You end up throwing it to your tight end running across the middle of the field. He doesn't pick up the 8 yards that you need on 3rd and 8. He picks up 4 yards. And if it was 2nd and 3, it would have been the first down. But 3rd and 8 wasn't. And it was a good start to that drive that ends up just kind of ending because Williams ended up taking that sack. Now, that is 100% on Caleb Williams. Here's why I'm okay with some of these plays. Caleb Williams is young, right? He's a young quarterback. Caleb Williams does not need to win a Super Bowl like today, right? He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes today, right? He just needs to develop. That's all he needs to do. He needs to get better from these situations. He needs to continue to process coverages and understand Ben Johnson's scheme. Caleb Williams is going to be the Bears quarterback for the next 15 years. And the hope is that Ben Johnson is also the head coach for the next 15 years. And the hope is that these two can have that success and they can continue to build forward. This is literally the 3rd game these guys have been able to kind of get out there together. This is the 2nd game that Williams has actually played. But these are learning lessons for Caleb Williams, right? Just got to kind of develop certain situations. The 3rd drive of the game, the 4th drive of the game that Caleb Williams comes out there, they ended up having a lot of success. Now, they were technically already down 17-0, but I absolutely loved the answer. Down 17-0. Now, here's the thing I want to kind of point out to you guys. Being down 17-0 is not great. You don't want to be in a situation where you're down 17-0, but the game's never over. Given there's still like 7-8 minutes left in the 2nd quarter. I like the answer here by Caleb Williams. And this guy drives right downfield on this one. Multiple solid plays. And, the first play, DeAndre Swift hits an outside zone. It's to the right. He cuts it back to the left. 12 yards. Another couple of nice runs, 3 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. You're on the Chiefs side of the field. 2nd and 7, you're going to play action bootleg. Williams is going to hit it for 18 yards. All of what Ben Johnson designed and how Caleb Williams executed the offensive line looked really, really good on that 3rd drive. They get into a situation where they're in a 2nd and 5 from about the 10-yard line. And this is when the drive ends. And here's the thing. Steve Spagnuolo is a genius as a defensive coordinator, right? He doesn't show things that the defense is running, and he'll call things like randomly as well. And when you're in the 7th year as a defensive coordinator for the same team with mostly the same defensive players, you can have so many different elements like on top, right? Like you can have a cover one rack and you can make that rack defender 5 different guys, and then you can have a cover one rat or a cover one look where it ends up cover 2 or cover 3 or cover 4. Like as a defensive coordinator in your 7th year, you can do so many different things. 2nd and 5, Casey's going to run what is called a simulated pressure. The defensive end is going to take a step forward. He runs with the running back, and the linebacker, who obviously the Bears thought was the guy that was going to cover the running back, he comes on a blitz. And what happens is KC also lines up their defensive tackles in a good spot. They slant the perfect way. Braxton Jones goes out towards that defensive end, and the linebacker ends up blitzing. So they simulate pressure. So they only bring 4, right? The linebacker, defensive end switch responsibilities. The linebacker comes clean. Caleb just doesn't have time on that 2nd and 5, and he throws the ball away, which is a smart decision by Caleb Williams. 3rd and 5 situation, not as smart, right? Williams, to me, no one's open, so it's understandable he takes his pass. You could have checked this down to the running back. 3rd and 5, you wouldn't have picked up the first, but maybe you go for it on 4th down. But he ends up throwing it to the wide receiver, Odunze, at the top. And what ends up happening is he throws it into double coverage. I don't like that read. Right? Truth be told, I do not like a guy throwing it into double coverage. But that was the play on 3rd and 5. And this was the 3rd drive. And then the Bears ended up settling for a field goal. You know, there's moments on these drives where I think if Caleb Williams takes the safer option, you know, like on 3rd and 5, down in the red zone area, you don't want to settle for a field goal in that situation, right? You want to, at the worst case scenario, pick up 2 or 3 yards. And most of the time, when Ben Johnson was with Jared Goff and the Lions, that's exactly what they did. If it was 3rd and 5, maybe you design something, and if it's not 100% open, you take the check down, take off running, pick up 2-3 yards, and then you go for it on 4th and short. And that's a thing that I think Ben Johnson will do with Caleb Williams, as Williams kind of understands these concepts a little bit better. And I shouldn't even say it like that. It's kind of coming off as like Caleb Williams is dumb or something. That's definitely not the case. But it's different when you have the Super Bowl, caliber defense on the other side, and they're simulating pressure and they're throwing all these mixed coverages. It's fast. You got 2 seconds to make that decision. So, Williams just has to process it a little bit better, which I think he will, right? But I still like the fact that on that 3rd drive, they still do drive downfield. It's a good answer, in my opinion. Don't love them settling for a field goal, but it's a learning situation. When that week 1 or week 2 game comes up and they're in a 3rd and 5 in the red zone, I guarantee you guys Caleb Williams is going to take the safer option if if the touchdown is not open, and they're going to go for it on 4th and 2. The 4th drive, phenomenal drive once again, right downfield. And on that 4th drive, they ended up scoring a touchdown. A 25-yard to Zacchaeus. Phenomenal read by Caleb Williams. Odunze ends up getting open. 37 yards from him. He makes a guy miss as well. I think Odunze is going to end up becoming one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. The guy just has that A.J. Brown kind of factor to his game, right? He's physical. He's bigger than so many guys out there. And he makes people miss. And, truth be told, one of the things I noticed watching tape against the Chiefs, who are a heavy cover 1 defense, is, DJ Moore and Zacchaeus, we're struggling to separate. Even the tight ends are struggling to separate against cover 1 man-to-man. Odunze was not. This guy was, obviously he's physical, so when he makes his cuts, he tosses people a little bit. So he will get called for pass interferences sometimes, but oftentimes he's not going to, and he's a guy that's going to generate separation. I think he's going to end up becoming one of the top wide receivers. He'll be a top 5 to 7 wide receiver. Maybe not this year, but I think by the end of next year, everybody will say he's a top 5 to 7 wide receiver. I think he'll end up being a top 15 by the end of this season. I think Caleb Williams clearly favors him as well, as you saw on that 3rd and 5 play on the 3rd drive when he threw it up in double coverage. You saw the touchdown pass as well, right, on that 4th drive was to Odunze. Great quick game action as well. I know some Bears fans are going to watch this video and say you're just making excuses for the Bears, but I do want you guys to recognize that this is the first year Ben Johnson is he's coming in, he's installing his own offense. When he was with the Lions, he took over for a different coordinator in the middle of the season, right? Jared Goff, I think, was like 0-11, or I think the Lions were 0-11 or something that season. He took over, and I think they ended up going 3-3, but the offense was already installed. So this is the first time Ben Johnson has to teach his guys what to do on every single situation. And I think anybody with eyeballs can see that this offense looks so much cleaner and crisper. The spacing's a lot better than what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years with the Bears. I think the Bears are going to end up having a lot of success this season. I don't think the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl this year, but I still think they'll potentially make the playoffs. And I think by next year, they're going to be like, we're pushing for the playoffs. Right? I think at the end of this season, they'll win 8, 9, 10 games, which might or might not get you in the playoffs, right? We'll see. But I think by the by the time next season rolls around, I think the Bears are going to be considered a Super Bowl team, right? Like there's 5 teams every year that we know are probably going to win the Super Bowl: Niners, Eagles, Chiefs, uh, the Bills, the Ravens. We know those are the teams that most likely are going to end up winning the Super Bowl. Even going into this year, those are probably the same teams that are going to end up winning the Super Bowl. I think the Bears will end up kind of getting into that category by next season. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have that type of success this season as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. Obviously, I wanted to kind of talk about this game because I know a lot of people are kind of disappointed with what they saw. Trust me, things are going to look a lot better as they kind of go forward. Let me know what you guys think, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this format of this video. If you guys can just hit that thumbs up button. This video took me like 5 hours to create. I have to script it, I have to record it, and I have to edit it. It's going to take 5 hours, right? So if you guys can just hit that thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time with another video.